Hello, my name is Jim Smith and I wrote this book about the history of the last beach, Bidawee Beach in Panama City Beach, Florida. As you are driving west on Front Beach Road just past Margaritaville and look to the left, history comes alive as you marvel at a half-mile of sand, dunes and foliage, creating a scene that looks pretty much as it did 100 years ago. Nowhere in Panama City Beach will you find that view as every year condos and hotels hide more and more of the world's most beautiful beach, so a first-time visitor might wonder, why isn't a Marriott there? The answer appears in this just-published book, Bidawee, A History of the Last Beach, written by Jim Smith, who has lived in that community for 30 years. Think of it as a recipe with lots of ingredients from a series of legal skirmishes over ownership of the beach and some unsavory villains to the romance of the couple who first developed the area and a woman whose generous check prevented bankruptcy. It is the result of 10 years of tedious research. What I found, Smith said, was the Bidawee community had a lot to do with the history of Bidawee Beach. The name Bidawee itself pauses Scottish for bide your time, rest or stay a while, a fitting sentiment for a beach paradise. When Smith and his wife, Penny, moved to Bidawee from Alabama, they learned that the community, including its beach, was owned by a beer distributor in Alabama and that Save Our Beach, the organization then representing residents, planned to gain ownership by bidding on the property at a tax sale auction. That didn't make sense to Smith. I found this to be not only bizarre, but it also just didn't feel right, so he decided to do some research. I became totally immersed in researching the chain of title of the beach, including how the beer distributor gained ownership. The research became my passion, and gaining ownership for the community became my cause. Some fascinating people surfaced with the research, beginning with Harry Cayley, who purchased the 140 acres that is now Bidawee in 1926 for under $200 thanks to the Homestead Act. 3 years later, the property was sold to Dr. Grover Miller and his wife, Eula, who became the sole owner when her husband died in 1934. Dr. Grover Miller was a professor of zoology and was dedicated to preserving the nesting birds and the turtle population that is adherent to the beach here in Bidawee. Dr. Miller's wife is one of the heroines in the story for developing and ultimately dedicating the beach to property owners in the community. The story could have ended there, but actually it's only the beginning. For the rest of the 20th century and into the 21st, Bidawee Beach has been a tasty target for individuals, companies, and even our local political leaders to gobble up for their own uses. Each time, the community has prevailed, but sometimes barely. It was, in fact, a day away from being auctioned off when the story's second heroine, Eunice Keaton, a Bidawee property owner, produced a $17,000 check to cover past taxes and other fees. And even when the dust settled on ownership, Bidawee faced an internal struggle that included vandalism when coated gates were installed to keep the beach private and safe from the damage incurred when it was open to the public. Smith, now 79, served for almost 4 decades in the Army, retiring as a colonel in 2000. He and Penny have 2 children, and one of them, Lee, and his own 2 children, convinced him to write this book. While they were enjoying a day on the beach in 2014, Smith asked his grandsons some innocuous questions about Bidawee when Lee interrupted.
"Dad," he said, "they know all about this beach and they love it, but what we don't know about is you and this beach."
What happened that made you become so involved with this beach for all those years? It's taken 10 years and about 250 pages, but now they have the answer. The story will appeal to Bidawee residents, of course, but anyone interested in the early days of Panama City Beach will find the characters good and bad as fascinating as a Grisham novel. And it will make you wish you lived here 100 years ago and could buy 140 acres of beachfront for under $200. So order your copy today and help us to preserve our environment, our heritage, and now our historical park.